Good morning or good evening, afternoon, everyone, depending on what time of day you're listening to this. This is Mark Johnson, and I'm back with another episode of Astral Perceptions. He's here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I'm your host, Mark Johnson, and right now it's a few days before Christmas. And so I wanted to talk about today not only what the true meaning of Christmas is, not what most people think, but also what's going on again in the world right now. I continue to address this because people are just getting so much more polarized, so much more hate. I don't know where our society is going right now, and it concerns me. My part of it is not to get involved in the hate. I've gotten frustrated. I can't believe some of the things that I'm seeing right now from people. But I know we're in very turbulent times, and I think that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than we realize. So let's talk a little bit first about Christmas. Okay. I've mentioned many times before on my other radio shows, I do not consider myself a Christian. I grew up in the Christian church, First Presbyterian Church of San Fernando, when I lived in LA. I read the Bible cover to cover, read a lot of the books more than a few times. I've always been very interested in the Bible and the stories as history. And there's a lot of good information in there about living a spiritual life. Now, I do not believe in hell. I don't believe in heaven exactly. I don't believe that we're going to be punished if we don't follow certain laws. In my spiritual quest and development over the last 37 years, I have learned more about, there's karma, we go through the cycle of reincarnation. We come here many times. There are many lessons that we're here to learn. We volunteer to come here. Although in this time right now, I wonder why in the hell I volunteered to come into this, because it is really a challenge right now to be here and see everything going on. So I wonder what my part is in all of this. And I feel that part of what I can do is talk to you and share some of my feelings, my experiences, and hope to influence people in a positive way, not to think the way I do, but to think for yourselves and try to guide people more away from all of the, I'm going to say it, all the bullshit that's going on right now. So with Christmas, we focus on Christmas in Western society, especially here in the United States, as a time of joy and peace on earth, goodwill to men. Christians celebrate the birth of Jesus, and they have the nice Christmas stories of Jesus being virgin birth, born in a manger, 3 wise men come and give gifts, and all of that. I've spoken a few times now about the TV show The Chosen, which is crowdfunded. You can watch one of the first season on Peacock. The rest of them are all free online on their own app. I really highly recommend this show. And again, here's a non-Christian talking about The Chosen, and I'll tell you why. First of all, as a TV show, it is highly, highly entertaining. It's extremely well written and well done. Great writing, characterization. Dallas Jenkins, who directs every episode, does a fantastic job. And showing the beginning of Jesus's ministry and calling all of his disciples. And he has a 7-season plan. They just did 2 seasons. They're about to start season 3. The actor who plays Jesus, Jonathan Rumi, is phenomenal. He's the best actor, in my opinion, who's ever played Jesus. And the main reason why is he plays him so human. In fact, everybody in the show is so human. Most of these shows have and movies in the past go out of their way to be so reverent, or in the case of Life of Brian by Monty Python, irreverent, still one of my favorites. But even though it's a show made by very devout Christians, and they go out of their way to make everyone human, including Jesus. And even though they show what they feel are the divine aspects of Jesus, it's still giving an incredibly great spiritual message, which is why I really highly recommend the show. Whether you're Christian or not, watch it. If at the very least you'll be entertained by it, I'll compare it to any really good historical drama. And the characters are all very well fleshed out. All of the disciples have their own quirks. All of them have their own backstories. And even there's a lot in the show that is not taken from the Gospels. It's written for dramatic purposes. So it has to be taken that way as a dramatic historical show. But the wisdom that comes out of it shows me and it reinforces something I've always believed. I do believe Jesus existed. I don't believe Jesus did everything that we're told he did, because the Bible, as we call it, or the Gospels, have been rewritten and retranslated and changed around, and things omitted for the last 2,000 years. We've had the councils of Constantinople and Nicaea, who specifically went through all of the books that were out there and decided which ones they wanted to put and compile into one book that we call the Bible. And there are a lot of writings that they chucked out. They did not include Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Mary. There's even a Gospel of Judas Iscariot. And a lot of the stories that are in there have been changed to reflect certain dogma and control over people, when I feel the real message of Jesus was to find that spirit within, that connection with God or the God source from within, and have that divine connection. Excuse me. The one thing that I kind of hope the show does, they probably won't, because they do follow, what they feel is traditional Christianity a lot. But if you read the Gospels, Jesus taught his disciples. They didn't just follow him around and watched him do everything and they did nothing. He taught them. He taught them spiritual concepts. He taught them how to perform the miracles that he did. He taught them how to go out and heal, how to preach. They did perform miracles, but he showed them that they could do what he could do, and that it's something that's within all of us, because we all come from that God source. That's the one thing where I disagree with religion, is we're not all separate from God. We are all part of God. We all came from God, or the God source, the creator force, whatever you want to call it. And being that we are facets of that God source out having our human experience. And I'll get into it in other shows, but we're having multiple human experiences through reincarnation, through multiple lives living at the same time. Heady stuff, I'll wait for that for another show. But Jesus taught peace, and he taught in parables, because just flat out coming out and telling people concepts, it's too easy to reject. But when he told his parables, the parables were stories used to try to get people to think for themselves. And that was the key there. And that's the key in spirituality. Don't go looking for some master or guru to give you all the answers. They don't need to. You have all the answers within you. And the parables that Jesus spoke about got people to think. And think about the meanings, think about the stories, and look and understand and comprehend for themselves. Instead of spoon feeding it to everyone, he caused everyone to think. Again, it's a fascinating history, and there's so much in the Gospels themselves. And I'll focus on the Gospels because I really don't care for the rest of the writings that came afterwards, especially anything doing with Paul. I think Paul, just my own personal opinion, created so much of the dogma for the church and went totally against everything that Jesus was trying to teach, and helped create the Catholic Church. Especially when Emperor Constantine supposedly had a vision on a battlefield and converted to Christianity and made it the official religion of Rome. Well, it's very convenient considering there were so many Christians popping up everywhere that I think it was more of a political move than anything, because they knew things were changing and they could use that to their advantage to control the populace, control the people. And that's what they've done. The Catholic Church has done for 2,000 years, and even other, branches off of Christianity. Too many Christians nowadays don't follow all of the edicts of the teachings for true spirituality, true brotherly love, looking at all of our fellow human beings as part of ourselves, because we are all interconnected. That's where I get into with what's going on in the world right now, with all of the division, all of the hate, all of the insanity that has been going on. I would just want to take the world and turn it upside down like a baby being born and smack its bottom. Because people have totally lost their way. They're totally being manipulated by our leaders, our governments, our religions, you name it. We're not only not being allowed to think for ourselves, but we're indoctrinated as children to follow these ideas that are currently permeating society. Totally, in my opinion, tearing down society, making us weak, making the division between people wider and wider. It started years ago with the racial division, and now we've coming into vaccine division. And people pointing fingers and saying, having no problem with pointing out someone and putting them down because of their racial background, whether their vaccination status. This crap needs to stop, quite frankly. I think that the media and the government has done such a good job of creating this hysteria. And whenever things seem to calm down, oh, look, we've got a new variant. Now scare the crap out of everybody again and telling us you can't have Christmas with family. You can't do this. You can't do that. Well, I don't buy it. I recognize it for what it is, manipulation. We have a current government in the United States that is completely, I want to say out of control, but I think in a lot of ways they know exactly what they're doing. And I find it frightening. The division that they're sowing. I'm not going to name names. I'm just not, because I'm not going to make it seem like I'm leaning one way or the other politically. Politics is killing us. I believe in a lot of, I lean, I guess, left in a lot of ways in terms of helping our fellow man and finding ways of helping humanity. But I don't believe in handouts. I believe in helping people help themselves, bringing people up, taking care of the less fortunate. I also believe that government needs to stay out of most of our lives. Stop telling people how to live. I believe these big corporations have gotten too involved and into controlling our lives, especially now in this electronic age with social media. There's too many factors at play here, and they pit us against one another. They pit us against racial divides, against now vaccination divides, whether someone chooses to be vaccinated or not. Now the campaign, the real political push is, well, if you're not vaccinated, you should be ostracized from society because you're a danger to everybody else. And again, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I've had the vaccine. I chose to take it. But I respect anybody who chooses not to take it because it's their choice. It's their body. Now, all the pro-abortionists always scream, it's my body, my choice. Well, nobody seems to want to give that to the people with vaccinations. They say, well, you're making a threat to everybody else. You're a threat. Well, you're pro-abortion. You have no problem with taking a life that you don't want, especially in later terms. It's a gray area with me, and I'm not going to get into an abortion debate because it's a gray area. I don't have a firm stance either way, especially if it's something is caught in the very early first few weeks before a beating heart. But once it starts beating, then it starts getting to be a gray area with me. The division we've had in this country, now we've had a lot of it coming for a very long time. People who say, make America great again, okay? Well, what does that mean exactly? How are we making America great? Economically, that's fine, as long as people are being helped. And I don't blame a lot of the rich people or the billionaires like everybody's doing. Everyone is piling on Elon Musk right now. Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, berating them for even being rich and not taking all of their money and spending it to help the poor and fix everything instead of flying into space. Well, here's something. Why isn't our government, who's created most of this mess, why aren't they fixing the problem with their tax dollars instead of giving it in foreign aid to other countries? Why aren't they helping the American people here now? Why aren't our veteran administration, our military, who joyfully gets people to sign up, thankfully no more draft, uses them for however long they're in there, but once they're out of the military, that's it. You're kicked to the curb. There's no services, real services for those veterans, especially those who served in the overseas wars. Totally pointless overseas wars that never should have happened. But again, that was all political maneuvering. The United States, and I'm going to say, I love my country. We have a beautiful country. I think for the most part, there's a lot of good in this country. And I believe the Constitution is one of the best documents ever created in forming a country. Is it perfect? No, but it's about as perfect as we're going to get with society. And a lot of people now are wanting to tear it down. They want to take away civil liberties. They've been taking away our civil liberties since 2001 after 9/11 with the Patriot Act. Spying on fellow Americans, making it more difficult to travel, to not trusting who we are. And yeah, there's terrorism out there. There's terrorists who want to harm us. But why do they want to harm us? In most cases, it's because we're over there meddling in their business. We need to keep to our own house. Stop trying to control the world. And I'm trying not to ramble here because I go off on a lot of tangents. Let's stick with the people here in the United States. Okay. Now, this country was founded, even though it had a great constitution, was founded by European settlers who displaced the indigenous Native Americans who were living here, conquered them, killed them. There was genocide. There was many atrocities. And it's something that we, as their descendants, those of us who come from a European background, should be very ashamed about. But it's not our current fault. Okay. While my background is mostly English, Irish, British Isles. Okay. I never killed an Indian. I never owned a slave. Neither has pretty much anybody alive right now. But we hold on to that past because there's so much hatred and division. And I get it. I totally get it. I understand it because so many people are still being kept down. The Native Americans, who I feel have had it the worst of anybody in this country. I know the African American community, they still feel like what happened to them, not only in slavery, but what happened, all the racism, Jim Crow, going through the first half of the 20th century up into the 60s, there was a lot of heavy duty racism. And racism still exists today. But you know what? It exists on both sides. It exists on all sides. Everyone is racist towards everybody else who's not one of them. I shouldn't say everybody. It's just that's where we've been heading these days. We're seeing a lot of reverse racism against white people being discriminated against, and people of color being given more of a leg up over somebody else who may be just as qualified for a job or whatnot. And this is where I have a problem. My problem is because we are all the same family. We need to stop the fighting. We need to stop the pointing of fingers. We need to nip racism in the bud from all sides, because that is not the way our Creator wants us to live. That is not the spiritual way. Do you think that when you die, do you think when I die, I'm going to the other side as a white person? No, not even going as a male. I'm going as my spirit. That same spirit, that same type of spirit is in every single one of you, regardless of color, regardless of gender, regardless of gender identity. We are all spiritual beings. So us fighting over skin color and sexual orientation and everything you can think of right now, it's something we need to overcome because it's all based on fear. It's fear-based. And that fear is coming from our media, from our educational institutions, and most definitely from our government. And it's not just one part of government. It's these political parties who are all vying for power. I'm not a fan of really either major political party. I do think one is really gone off the rails and is pushing agendas that are borderline evil, but they're all about control. It's about keeping them in control and power, along with the corporations who support them, who give them money, finance their campaigns. You know, the one big issue that they keep pushing right now is climate change. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about climate change. Do I believe that there is climate change? Yes. Do I believe man-made activities contribute to it? Yes. Do I also believe that the earth goes through natural cycles too, that the weather and the climate does change over time? Yes, because there's evidence of it going all the way back through our history. Now, the damage that we as mankind does to this planet in terms of pollution, in terms of what we're doing with genetically modified food, with what we're doing with overpopulation, the garbage at sea, the Texas-sized garbage island floating out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, the nuclear waste, the you name it, all of these things need to be addressed and should be our main priority. Not what they're pushing now, which is, oh, we have to fix climate change, so we're going to tax you some more. Okay, so where's that money going? Well, this multi-trillion-dollar spending bill that our government is trying to put out, if you take a look at it, it's supposed to go towards infrastructure. Very little of it goes towards infrastructure. It's going to pork programs. And it's something Congress has done since time immemorial. They have always, I wish we had a line item veto so that we could cut out the pork and cut out the BS. But unfortunately, we don't have that. It's pass the whole bill or not. You remember the old saying, well, we have to pass the bill to know what's in it. I think that's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard, because, hey, maybe you should all read the bill and take the time to read it before you pass it. But, they know exactly what's in it. And they're pushing things through to have their agenda. When our government is not serving the people, the American citizens, it's an American government that needs to look out for American citizens. I have no problem with immigration. I have no problem with people wanting to come here for a better life. I do have a problem with open borders. In the past, when we're going back a couple hundred years, there was a different story. There wasn't borders per se. Native Americans didn't look at the land belonging to them. They lived on it. It's the Europeans who came over and started sectioning things off and creating countries and putting up divides and whatnot. And unfortunately, that's the system we have. And because of that system, some countries are doing better than others. So now we have a country here in America where a lot of people want to come here and have the American dream. But that American dream is all financially based. It's all, well, I want my car. I want my house. I want to have a lot of food for my family. I want all the comforts that they have. And I think these things, these innovations that we've had over time have hindered us more than they've helped us. We've got our cell phones here. Okay. Oh, can't see it here. I can't tell you how often I go out. I'll go to a restaurant and everybody sitting at tables around me are all sitting there scrolling, looking at their phones. Okay. In some ways, I wish we'd throw them all away. In other ways, I love technology. I'm using it here to talk to you. It depends on how it's used. But we're too distracted as a society, and we're not focused on what we need to be focused on. We need to stop focusing on the fear that our media creates, the fear that our government creates, the divide that our government creates. When our current government comes in and they say, oh, we're going to unite the country, and then turns right around and does everything possible to divide the country, blaming, white supremacists. I'm white. I haven't met any white supremacists. Don't particularly know of any. And last I heard, I haven't heard of any, major violence going around the country caused by white supremacists. There's a lot of other angry people out there that are being whipped up to perpetrate violence, and stupid states who don't even want to prevent crime by creating policies that encourage crime, and then they won't do anything about it. Then they wonder why their businesses are closing up and moving away, why their economies are tanking. We live in a very complicated world. And if I had my way, I would be living the Native American way of a couple of 100 years ago. I think we were better off as tribal communities, as smaller groups of people on this planet whose societies actually helped people. And I did a lot of reading and studying on different Native cultures, indigenous cultures, where people in the tribe, if they didn't have enough, it was an honor for someone else who had more to help them out. Let's say you had a family and the husband was killed and it's just the mother and the children. It was an honor for another family to take on the responsibility of helping to feed them and clothe them and keep them, up with society. We don't do that here. Now the one problem with the American dream, it's every man for himself, man, woman, child, we don't foster that helping hand. And that's where I blame our corporations, I blame our government for not doing the programs to help people, but you don't just give handouts, you help people help themselves. You help people get that leg up and that they help contribute to society. We have a bad drug problem in this society, and it's keeping a lot of people down. This pandemic, which I have a lot of opinions on myself, which I fully believe was intentionally released, is done a lot of damage, but it's also allowed them to put in a lot of policies in place to take away freedoms and to whip up fear and control the populace. Exactly the same way 9/11 happened. Look at all the changes that America went through after 9/11. So every 20 years or so, it seems like something else happens that they gain more and more control. And so what can we do about it? Well, there is peaceful resistance. There's those people out there who are saying, I'm not going to do what you're demanding I do, because if I don't believe in it, I'm not going to do it. That would go for the people who don't want to get vaccinated. I say that's fine. Don't let them get vaccinated. That's their choice. Now, hysterical media and government people saying, well, if you're not vaccinated, you're a danger to everybody else. Considering that us vaccinated people can still catch COVID. I have friends who are fully vaccinated who caught COVID. And we can still give COVID. So what is the difference between a person being vaccinated and not being vaccinated? Okay, even with booster shots, and I know people have had the booster shots and they still get COVID. This so-called vaccine is not a vaccine in the terms of like we used to know of the smallpox vaccine, where it prevents you from getting it, period. These vaccines, and I think vaccine is the wrong term. It's a medicine that supposedly helps build up your antibodies so you don't get it so bad, so you don't wind up in the hospital. But there's also a lot of talk of bad side effects for some people, blood clots that some people were getting on one of the vaccines. Other people that are running into major complications and being hospitalized for them. Now, when we mention this or other people mention this online or social media, they're shut down automatically. Fact checkers claim this is false, or they get deleted, their channels deleted, just because they're trying to speak what they feel is the truth. And again, this is part of where our freedoms are being taken away. You know, for all I know, this video will get banned just because I'm saying this. Now, I'm not supporting one side or the other. I believe in individual free choice. And if it's proven that the vaccine completely wipes out COVID, okay, then I encourage everybody to get it. But since it doesn't, and those people who choose not to get it, they stand a slightly greater chance of being hospitalized or having serious complications. And I've known people that I've had friends who have died of COVID. Okay. But those people who died before the vaccine came out. Those people who choose not to take it now because of they fear that it'll cause them health problems down the road, fine. Do I believe that they need to be ostracized completely from society? No. Because again, if I'm vaccinated and you're not vaccinated and you give me COVID, okay, I stand a better chance of having a bad cold and then getting over it. They may have a 1 or 2% chance of winding up in the hospital. COVID is nowhere near as bad as they make it out to be. It has a 99% survival rate. Now, granted, I know people who've had it and they've had some long-term complications. So it's not something to just blow off. It's very real, but I don't think the policies we're using right now is helping. You know, trying to force everyone to get vaccinated, to take this vaccine, is wrong. Forcing anybody to do something against their will is wrong. People should be in charge of their own lives. I mean, there are societal rules, as long as it's not hurting anybody else. And I don't believe the unvaccinated are hurting anybody else except themselves if they get sick, if they catch COVID. But again, I know a lot of people who weren't vaccinated who got COVID. They suffered for about a week and then they were fine. Some have some minor complications. It's a very real virus. I don't believe in the conspiracy that it's not real. But I also do believe that it was released intentionally. And we have a lot of international politics going on right now between the US and China and now Russia. And I believe that we had some opportunities that we have missed in these last several years to actually try to form better relationships with some of these countries that we now consider enemies. I mean, Soviet Union fell. Russia was no longer a big threat. And while they're not a perfect country, Putin's not a perfect leader. You know, he's entrepreneurial, but I don't consider Putin to be the devil incarnate either. I actually think that we had an opportunity a few years ago to really work with him and maybe work to come to some common ground. May not see perfectly eye to eye, but they don't have to be our enemies. But our government chose to scream Russia, 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 and make them our enemies and make it impossible to establish a good relationship with them. Now, in the current regime, they laugh at us. And all that damage we've done and all the accusations we've done, oh yeah, they're holding it against us. And now they're doing things that are scary. Same thing with China. They want to be the economic leader of the world. And all of these countries fighting, all of this economic stuff is not why we're here. It's not why we're here. racial divides is not why we're here. I love everyone. I want to look in the good in everyone. There's not everyone is a good person. There are people who will do you harm. They'll kill you. They'll stab you in the back. They'll do all sorts of things. Getting back to a lot what Jesus was trying to teach about forgiveness, the famous line of, somebody strikes your cheek, offer them your other one. And that's not meaning bow down and cow down to someone who's attacking you. It's meaning that don't go for revenge. Try to take a step back. If something bad is happening to you, forgive that person. Now, forgiveness doesn't mean to continue to make yourself a victim either. You only have two cheeks. But the first reaction is there's a perfect scene in the second season of The Chosen where Jesus is walking with the two Jameses, big and little James. And they're in the country of Samaria, which, you hear about the Good Samaritan. Well, so the Jews and the Samaritans did not get along back then. And as they're walking along the road talking, these Samaritans come by and start throwing things at them and spit on them, not liking them because of who they were. And right away, the two Jameses were getting pissed and they wanted to attack them. Jesus held them back. And then after the Samaritans left, he scolded them. And he goes, what do you expect to do? Basically, he was trying to teach them forgiveness, how to help others, look past the flaws of others, because we are all connected. We are all one and the same. It was a beautifully written scene. It's why I like the show. When we look at our racial divide that's going on here right now, okay, Black Lives Matter has been a slogan that's been around for several years now because of the Black community feeling that they are being unfairly targeted and killed by the police. Do I think that is happening? Yes, I do, to an extent. I think there's a lot of racist cops out there. I think there's a lot of asshole cops out there, but there's also a lot of good cops out there. My nephew was a police officer, and my uncle was a police officer. Now, is there racism in the departments? Yeah, just like there's racism everywhere. People look at other people and make snap judgments, and that crap needs to stop. The same thing where these communities are screaming, defund the police. Well, these same communities where the police are being defunded are like war zones and going to hell. We, in our current Western society and the amount of people we have here, we need the police. We need some kind of order. But I don't believe in a militarized police. I don't believe in all of the laws that we have that incarcerate people. The drug laws that we had for so long, throwing people in jail for having weed, which now everyone's legalizing. So what about all those people for years who were incarcerated for having weed? We don't have a perfect system. There's a lot of animosity towards the past. I mean, you could look at the South during the 30s, the 50s. I mean, after the Civil War up until the 1960s, there was a lot of tension between the blacks and the whites. And there was a lot of racism. You had the KKK, bunch of assholes. Now you have the opposite with Black Lives Matter, which I agree, Black Lives Matter. But I believe every life matters. And I've seen commercials pushing that they say all lives don't matter until Black lives matter. Sorry, don't buy it. We are all human beings. We all need to be treated the same. We all need to be treated fair. We all need to love one another. And it's not one race over another. White people shouldn't be before black people. Black people shouldn't be before everybody else, or white people, or Asian people, or all of the wonderful cultures and ethnicities that we have here in our country and in the world. It's talking about Christmas. Christmas preaches, peace, joy, love for fellow man. Why are we only looking at that one day a year? It should be every day. It should be part of our everyday paradigm, and helping our fellow man, helping people get a step up for those who are struggling to get a step up. And I'm quoting the Bible a lot, even as a non-Christian, I'm quoting the Bible because I feel there's a lot of wisdom in there. There are always going to be people who have more than others. That's a fact. I do believe that if you have the means, if you're rich, if you're a Jeff Bezos or an Elon Musk, you should be giving back to your communities. But I don't agree with the current opinion by a lot of people that are blasting these guys for like their space programs and wanting to go off and explore and say, no, they should take that money, invest, and help all the people here first. You know what? It's their money. They can do with it what they want. Now, I would encourage them, like I'd encourage anybody. You can't force someone to do something they don't want to do. If you're going to have a rich person who wants to hoard their money, that's fine. Let them hoard their money. It's their karma that they're hurting. It's their not helping their fellow man that's going to be kind of held against them in the, after this life, and then they'll have to work it out in the next life. That's the beauty of karma. We're here to learn lessons. We're here to have experiences, both good and bad. Life isn't going to be rosy or perfect all the time. We are here for that human experience. Sometimes we deal with atrocities. We deal with natural disasters. And in the end, when we leave this life, it's part of our collective. It's part of our learning. And we go off and we do more learning until we've completed whatever course it is that we need to. Do we return to a creator? Do we advance to other levels? There's a lot of questions there that I'm not sure of. All I can say is while we're here, we need to help be the best human beings we can be, and treat everybody the same. Be good to your fellow human beings. Don't hold hate in your hearts. Don't ostracize people from society because they don't do what you think they should be doing. Because in the end, we're all in this together. The birth of Jesus, the stories we're told, if you do enough research, you'll see how a lot of that is mythology taken from other earlier religions. Mithraism had a virgin birth. Mithra was born a virgin birth, supposedly in a manger. Sounds very familiar. It's the same with the Egyptian kingdom society, empire. And a lot of their gods and religions came from the earlier Sumerian religions. I think the same thing is true of what is modern Christianity. Things were incorporated, especially by the Romans, who took over Christianity, and they made a lot of changes to it. But you still find some truth there in the Bible. Everything that focuses on love, on forgiveness, on being a better person, not death and destruction or hell, sin. What is sin? Sin is making mistakes. Sin is not living by the code that we all need to live by. It's not being good to our fellow human beings. It's not living a spiritual life, connecting deeper within ourselves, fixing our society. Our society desperately needs to be fixed. We need to clean up the environment, but we need to hold the corporations accountable, because right now they're getting a free pass because they have the money and they're contributing to the politicians. So all these climate change summits where they show up in their private jets and big cars and whatnot, it's a joke. You're trying to force everyone off of gasoline into electric cars. Well, I agree with that in one aspect. We've been forced to drive 100-year-old polluting technology for years, but the current electric cars are a joke, in my opinion, because first of all, limited charges. And how do you charge them? Plug them into an electrical station or your home. What's charging that home? The electrical power coming from either a coal plant, a nuclear plant. It's not coming from anything that we would call green. The batteries that they're using, these lithium batteries that are being mined by slave children labor in Africa. Don't believe me? Look it up. And when the batteries are dead, disposing of them, they're highly toxic. It's almost like nuclear waste. There are a lot of devices that have been invented over the years that work absolutely clean energy, and they've been suppressed by the oil companies, by the other corporations, because it's a threat to their livelihood. Do you honestly think the oil industry is going to allow them to eliminate gasoline vehicles? Smoke and mirrors. As long as they have the power, they have the money, they are never going to let go of that, and they're never going to allow it. So there will always be a stumbling block. Will we have electric cars? Yeah, I see Teslas out there all the time. I see electric cars all the time. Again, it's still not perfect technology. We need something better. Something that's not going to limit people to, like, I can only drive for 8 hours and then I got to pull over and charge my car for 8 hours or 24 hours or however long it is before it's filled up again before I can continue my, driving cross country. We should have that freedom to move cross country. I've rambled a lot here. I tend to ramble a lot on these shows because I have so much I want to say. But in this Christmas time, I really want to push the Christmas spirit of peace, love, goodwill towards men, but 360 and women, men, mankind, you know what I mean, not being, gender specific here, but we do it every day, and we need to change where we are. We need to stop the hate, the violence, the division that we are all causing, the fear. This is all fear-based. We need to move beyond the fear. And to do that, we need to stop listening to the media, to the program media, which is just programmed to scare the crap out of you every day you tune in, to all the fear messages coming out of the government, trying to control you, trying to divide us further. It's time to look within. Whether you go to church, whether or not, whether you look within and meditate, whatever connection that you can find with God, with spirit, there is going to be your first steps towards moving past all of this. In incoming shows, I know I'm not doing these as regularly as I would like. We'll focus a little bit more on that. We'll focus on some techniques. I've recently got some information. I'm not ready to share it yet publicly about something that I might be involved in. But I don't understand it fully yet. All I know is it's supposed to help people. So that's what I would like to do. I want to help people. So let's see what happens with that. And we'll focus more in future shows on how we could take certain steps to move past the fear, to get more in contact with spirit, our higher selves, with God, whatever it is that you want to connect with that will help us grow and become better people. So that's my Christmas message to everyone out there, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, whether it's Hanukkah, whether it's Ramadan, Kwanzaa, whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is we are good human beings and we help each other. That's the message. So with that being said, I want to wish everyone happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and I will probably see you all again in the new year. Let's hope that we can make 2022 better than the last couple of years. And I think that it will be better, but we have to make the effort to make it better. We have that control in our hands. Let's use it. Everyone, have a good evening. We'll talk with you soon.